If there had been swine flu, we would have had deaths in the thousands. Given the state of knowledge of influenza at the time, I think we made the right decision. Dr. David J. Censor. History doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes. Samuel Clemens, also known as Mark Twain. Good evening, everybody. I'm gonna skip the usual intro. Just wanted to show everyone something. And here we go. Now this is, the links are in the description box. And the Zoom meeting, you can come on in and talk afterwards. I kind of locked it until after I show all this stuff. Because someone was trying to get in before I even tried to live stream. But anyways, I'm gonna play this back. It's 60 minutes with Robert Wallace, I think. Some Wallace, I forget his name. This is 60 minutes on the swine flu and the vaccinations of 1976. This has been shown around a lot, but really people just tend to forget, or maybe they didn't know. You probably get more data on it, and of course you want to go ahead and go through mainstream media or government sources, your authority, if that's what you think is an authority. There's even articles on it because, you know, all this stuff comes back. And you can always just see the patterns that repeat throughout history. That's why I have that quote, which is nice, you know, by Samuel Clemens, also known as Mark Twain. History doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and show this. It's about 14 and a half minutes long, then I'll come back.
The flu season is upon us. Which type will we worry about this year? And what kind of shots will we be told to take? Remember the swine flu scare of 1976? That was the year the U.S. government told us all that swine flu could turn out to be a killer that could spread across the nation. And Washington decided that every man, woman, and child in the nation should get a shot to prevent a nationwide outbreak, a pandemic. Well, 46 million of us obediently took the shot. And now 4,000 Americans are claiming damages from Uncle Sam amounting to $3.5 billion because of what happened when they took that shot. By far the greatest number of the claims, 2/3 of them, are for neurological damage or even death, allegedly triggered by the flu shot. We pick up the story back in 1976 when the threat posed by the swine flu virus seemed very real indeed.
This virus was the cause of a pandemic in 1918 and 1919 that resulted in over 500,000 deaths in the United States, as well as 20 million deaths around the world.
See how easy it is to
Thus, the U.S. government's publicity machine was cranked into action to urge all America to protect itself against the swine flu menace.
Influenza is serious business. During major flu epidemics, millions of people are sick and thousands die. Well, this year you can get protection. The vaccines are safe, easy to take, and they can protect you against flu. So roll up your sleeve. Protect yourself.
One of those who did roll up her sleeve was Judy Roberts. She was perfectly healthy, an active woman, when in November of 1976, she took her shot. 2 weeks later, she says, she began to feel a numbness starting up her legs.
I joked about it at that time. I said I'll be numb to the knees by Friday if this keeps up. By the following week, I was totally paralyzed.
So completely paralyzed, in fact, that they had to operate on her to enable her to breathe. And for 6 months, Judy Roberts was a quadriplegic. The diagnosis? A neurological disorder called Guillain-Barré syndrome, GBS for short. These neurological diseases are little understood. They affect people in different ways. As you can see in these home movies taken by a friend, Judy Roberts' paralysis confined her mostly to a wheelchair for over a year. But this disease can even kill. Indeed, there are 300 claims now pending from the families of GBS victims who died, allegedly as a result of the swine flu shot. In other GBS victims, the crippling effects diminish and all but disappear. But for Judy Roberts, progress back to good health has been painful and partial. Now, I notice that your smile, Judy, is a little bit constricted.
Yes, it is.
Is it different from what it used to be?
Very different. I have a greatly decreased mobility in my lips. And I can't drink through a straw on the right-hand side. I can't blow out birthday candles. I don't whistle anymore, for which my husband is grateful.
It may be a little difficult for you to answer this question, but have you recovered as much as you are going to recover?
Yes, this is it.
So you will now have a legacy of braces on your legs for the rest of your life?
Yes, the weakness in my hands will stay, and the leg braces will stay.
So Judy Roberts and her husband have filed a claim against the U.S. government. They're asking $12 million, though they don't expect to get nearly that much. Judy, why did you take the flu shot?
I'd never taken any other flu shots, but I felt like this was going to be a major epidemic. And the only way to prevent a major epidemic of a really deadly variety of flu was for everybody to be immunized.
Where did this so-called deadly variety of flu, where did it first hit back in 1976? It began right here at Fort Dix in New Jersey in January of that year, when a number of recruits began to complain of respiratory ailments, something like the common cold. An Army doctor here sent samples of their throat cultures to the New Jersey Public Health Lab to find out just what kind of bug was going around here. One of those samples was from a Private David Lewis who had left his sickbed to go on a forced march. Private Lewis had collapsed on that march, and his sergeant had revived him by mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. But the sergeant showed no signs of illness. A few days later, Private Lewis died.
If this disease is so potentially fatal that it's going to kill a young, healthy man, a middle-aged school teacher doesn't have a prayer.
The New Jersey lab identified most of those soldiers' throat cultures as the normal kind of flu virus going around that year, but they could not make out what kind of virus was in the culture from the dead soldier and from 4 others who were sick. So they sent those cultures to the Federal Center for Disease Control in Atlanta, Georgia, for further study. A few days later, they got the verdict: swine flu. But that much publicized outbreak of swine flu at Fort Dix involved only Private Lewis, who died, and those 4 other soldiers who recovered completely without the swine flu shot.
If I had known at that time that the boy had been in a sick bed, got up, went out on a forced march, and then collapsed and died, I would never have taken the shot.
The rationale for our recommendation was not on the basis of the death of a single individual, but it was on the basis that when we do see a change in the characteristics of the influenza virus, it is a massive public health problem in this country.
Dr. David Senser, then head of the CDC, the Center for Disease Control in Atlanta, is now in private industry. He devised the swine flu program, and he pushed it. You began to give flu shots to the American people in October of '76.
October 1st.
By that time, how many cases of swine flu around the world had been reported?
There had been several reported, but none confirmed. There had been cases in Australia that were reported by the press, by the news media. There were cases in...
None confirmed. Did you ever uncover any other outbreaks of swine flu anywhere in the world?
No.
Now, nearly everyone was to receive the shot in a public health facility where a doctor might not be present. Therefore, it was up to the CDC to come up with some kind of official consent form, giving the public all the information it needed about the swine flu shot. This form stated that the swine flu vaccine had been tested. What it didn't say was that after those tests were completed, the scientists developed another vaccine, and that was the one given to most of the 46 million who took the shot. That vaccine was called X53A. Was X53A ever field tested?
I can't say. I would have to...
It wasn't.
I don't know.
Well, I would think that you're in charge of the program.
I would have to check the records. I haven't looked at this in some time.
The information form, the consent form, was also supposed to warn people about any risks of serious complications following the shot. But did it?
No, I had never heard of any reactions other than a sore arm, fever, this sort of thing.
Judy Roberts' husband, Gene, also took the shot.
Yes, I looked at that document. I signed it. Nothing on there said I was going to have a heart attack or I can get Guillain-Barré, which I never heard of.
What if people from the government, from the Center for Disease Control, what if they had indeed known about it? What would be your feeling?
They should have told us.
Did anyone ever come to you and say, you know something, fellas? There's the possibility of neurological damage if you get into a mass immunization program?
No.
No one ever did?
No.
Do you know Michael Hatwick?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Dr. Michael Hatwick directed the surveillance team for the swine flu program at the CDC. His job was to find out what possible complications could arise from taking the shot and to report his findings to those in charge.
Did you know ahead of time, Dr. Hatwick, that there had been case reports of neurological disorders, neurological illness, apparently associated with the injection of influenza vaccine?
Absolutely.
You did?
Yes.
How'd you know that?
By review of the literature.
So you told your superiors, the men in charge of the swine flu immunization program, about the possibility of neurological disorders?
Absolutely.
What would you say if I told you that your superiors say that you never told them about the possibility of neurological complications?
That's nonsense. I can't believe that they would say that they did not know that there were neurological illnesses associated with influenza vaccination. That simply is not true. We did know that.
I've said that Dr. Hatwick has never told me of his feelings on this subject.
Then he's lying.
I guess you would have to make that assumption.
Then why does this report from your own agency, dated July 1976, list neurological complications as a possibility?
I think the consensus of the scientific community was that the evidence relating neurologic disorders to influenza immunization was such that they did not feel that this association was a real one.
You didn't feel it was necessary to tell the American people that information?
I think that over the years we have tried to inform the American people as fully as possible.
As part of informing Americans about the swine flu threat, Dr. Sensor's CDC also helped create the advertising to get the public to take the shot.
Let me read to you from one of your own agency's memos planning the campaign to urge Americans to take the shot. The swine flu vaccine has been taken by many important persons, he wrote. Example, President Ford, Henry Kissinger, Elton John, Muhammad Ali, Mary Tyler Moore, Rudolph Nureyev, Walter Cronkite, Ralph Nader, Edward Kennedy, etc., etc. True?
I'm not familiar with that particular piece of paper, but I do know that at least of that group, President Ford did take the vaccination.
Did you talk to these people beforehand to find out if they planned to take the shot?
I did not know.
Did anybody?
I do not know.
Did you get permission to use their names in your campaign?
I do not know.
Mary, did you take a swine flu shot?
No, I did not.
Did you give them permission to use your name saying that you had or were going to?
Absolutely not. Never did.
Did you ask your own doctor about taking the swine flu shot?
Yes, and at the time he thought it might be a good idea. But I resisted it because I was leery of having the symptoms that sometimes go with that kind of inoculation.
So you didn't?
No, I didn't.
Have you spoken to your doctor since?
Yes.
And?
He's delighted that I didn't take that shot.
You're in charge. Somebody's in charge.
This
is your advertising strategy that I have a copy of here.
Who's it signed by?
This one is unsigned. But you'll acknowledge that it was your baby, so to speak.
It could have been from Department of Health, Education, and Welfare. It could be from CDC. I don't know. I'll be happy to take responsibility for it.
It's been 3 years now since you fell ill with GBS, right?
Right.
Has the federal government, in your estimation, played fair with you about your claim?
No, I don't think so. It seems to be dragging on and on and on, and really no end in sight that I can see at this point.
With respect to the cases of Guillain-Barré allegedly...
Former Secretary of HEW Joseph Califano, too, was disturbed that there was no end in sight. So a year and a half ago, he promised that Uncle Sam would cut the bureaucratic red tape for victims suffering from GBS and would pay up quickly.
We shouldn't hold them to an impossible or too difficult standard of proving that they were hurt. Even if we pay a few people a few $1,000s that might not have deserved it, I think justice requires that we promptly pay those people who do deserve it.
Who's making the decision to be so hard-nosed about settling?
Well, I assume the Justice Department is.
Griffin Bell before he left?
Well, the Justice Department agreed to the statement I made. It was cleared word for word with the lawyers in the Justice Department by my HEW lawyers.
And that statement said, in effect...
That statement said that we should pay Guillain-Barré claims without regard to whether the federal government was negligent if they resulted from the swine flu shot.
I think the government knows it's wrong.
If it drags out long enough, that people will just give up. Let it go.
I am a little more adamant in my thoughts than my wife is, because I told Judy to take the shot. She wasn't going to take it, and she never had shots. And I'm mad with my government because they knew the facts, but they didn't release those facts because if they had released them, the people wouldn't have taken them. And they can come out tomorrow and tell me there's going to be an epidemic, and they can drop off like flies next to me. I will not take another shot that my government tells me to take.
Meantime, Judy Roberts and some 4,000 others like her are still waiting for their day in court.
Oh, I guess back then they actually had some pretty good pretty good journalists, huh? You can probably read about the swine flu more. Hamilton Nolan, this is Gawker. Another mainstream media is slightly alt, I guess. Swine flu panic bullshit. This is back in 2009 of April 27th. Says, quickly don your paper mask, stay indoors. The dirty Mexican pig influenza is here to sicken you. Waka waka. Did you know that America had another swine flu panic in 1976? Let's reminisce and laugh. 1976, Gerald Ford is leading our nation. Swine flu is detected in a populist panic. A history in New York Times headlines. February 20th, 1976, U.S. calls flu alert on possible return of epidemics virus. U.S. flu alert set on epidemic virus. Sounds familiar. March 25th, 1976. Interesting. It's kind of that time of year, right? Flu. Ford urges flu campaign to inoculate entire U.S. He will ask Congress for $135 million to make vaccine for a new virus to avert fall and winter epidemics. Ford urges U.S. flu campaign to inoculate entire population. Bold action. April 10th, 1976, $135 million voted by Senate to fund flu immunization, unquestioning political acquiescence. Yeah, we're seeing that now. You know, all this... we hate Trump. We hate the DNC hates the Republicans. Republicans hate DNC. They don't work together on anything. And then this happens. They'll work together. May 21st, 1976. Race for a swine flu vaccine began in a Manhattan lab. Race to develop swine flu vaccine began in a Manhattan lab. Feature stories. June 9th, 1976. Experts in Europe question U.S. plan for mass flu shots. European questions U.S. flu shot plan. Of course, you're not going to see this questioning now. Europe always trying to disrupt America's bold plans with science. Shut up, Europe. October 13th, 1976. Swine flu program is halted in 9 states as 3 die after shots. Deaths occur in Pittsburgh, but no evidence found that fatalities among elderly were a result of vaccination. The states halt swine flu program as 3 die after shots. The bold action has backfired. November 24th, 1976, swine flu victim back on job as search regular flu was worse. The problem wasn't that bad in the first place. December 17th, 1976, swine flu program suspended in nation. Disease link feared. 94 cases of paralysis cited U.S. AIDS Act because of concern that shots may be connected to Guillain-Barré syndrome. In fact, the cure was worse than the disease. February 5th, 1977, swine flu program brings $10.7 million in claims. 104 suits already filed are viewed only as the first wave. The government must pay for its bold action. November 16th, 1978, around the nation, over $2.64 billion in claims filed in swine flu program, and pay some more. October 17th, 1980, $49 million in swine flu vaccine to be destroyed by government, and pay some more at the end. Here's what we have today. 20 confirmed cases of this flu, which has killed nobody here. It'll spread for a while. Okay, there are plenty more deadly diseases already here, killing people every day. Even in Mexico, the epicenter of the deadly outbreak and home to a far, far worse healthcare system than we have. It only killed 130 people. That's a lot fewer people that have been killed at the Juarez drug war this year. This is page B3 story that's gone all A1. Anyways, that's that. So, anyways, we'll probably end up seeing a national, or probably also international vaccination program. And of course, government, of course, and probably other sources are going to say you should take it. It's going to be protection and all that stuff. And then people will take it and there's going to be weird stuff, you know. Thank you, Suzette, and I Love Awakening and The Plain Truth. Yeah, great. That's what I like, you know, people who are searching for these things on Google or on YouTube aren't going to find me, but Plain Truth, if you share it, people are going to find, people, you know, are going to see it. They're going to share it, you know, so it's just it's really up to everybody to share information that's pertinent that you may not have heard of, you may not have seen, or you may have gone through it and you know, you don't have the tech savviness to share it or anything like that. And that's kind of why I do allow people on at any time, and I'm gonna allow people to come on in now if you want. Give your thoughts on it. The Plain Truth, there are no side effects, they are the effect. Yes. That's probably it. There's probably a reason they want people to take the vaccine. And the person, you know, Dr. David J. Sensor, the guy who was the director of the CDC at that time, yeah, kind of just the way that he reacted to all the questions to the reporter, it just, you know what, I doubt anything happened to that guy either. He probably lived a long, full life, and I think he did. I think on the Wikipedia, it said he lived to like 83 or 86, and he died of pneumonia or something like that. So, you know, nothing happened to him. He didn't go to prison. A lot of people, it was just on his decision, and he didn't know. You know, that Dr. Hartwig or something like that, Hatwig, said there's problems with the vaccine. It's like, well, it didn't make it to the top, or if it did make it to the top lied and said, who cares? We're just gonna release it anyway. So, you know, people will warn you. I think even people in the medical industry will warn people. Doctors are probably even going to be hesitant. Who knows? You know, I think most reasonable people are going to say, you know, I don't really see people getting killed by this COVID-19 coronavirus like they say in the papers. I would say just wait on the vaccine if there is one, you know, just kind of like the doctor said for that actress and stuff like that. Anyways, that was it. That's all I wanted to show y'all. You guys can probably do more research on your own for the swine flu virus back in 1976. It even references I think the Spanish influenza back in 1918, 1919, which you can also look at as well, which they did shut down a lot of facilities and things like that. So again, Samuel Clemens, also known as Mark Twain, history doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes. Anyways, thank you for listening and joining in, and I'll see y'all another time.